my ancestors have bad intentions.
In the sense,
I mean, you're a white man. Like, I'm sorry. But
Well,
I
but you don't.
mean-
But you're making assumptions. I mean, what
I'm
background
sorry.
am I? Do you know?
Right.
you said Italian beforehand.
He's Italian.
Yeah. So
I mean, the
well, I'll
Italians supported Hitler, didn't they?
Well,
And
not the
Italians are
Italians that
known
came
to
to
be
America, but
racist.
also I support Hitler, so it's really besides the point.
That's so.
But look, but you don't really understand, okay?
We are really good time now. Let's go. Okay, sorry. Continue on.
I understand that someone can say something like, I support Hitler, and it's like, okay, well, maybe you can support one isolated thing that he did rather than like the tragedy that he was known for. And it's like a tongue-in-cheek thing to say. I mean, as someone who is dating a Jewish man, like I cannot just like sit here and get into an argument over that with you. Like we would be here all day.
That's true. Well, and I don't support just part of it. I support most of it. I'll just put that out there. But
Why?
that's besides the point.
I don't know why.
Murdering
Why?
people?
Because,
Yeah.
well, first of all, I don't think that actually happened. That's first. But second of all, I think the whole history of World War II is basically a lie, in my opinion.
It was
Okay.
genocide, first
Right, I
of all.
was just
It's also
gonna say
factual,
that.
though.
Can you explain that?
So, like,
It was
One at a time, one at a time here.
Okay, we'd be happy to facilitate this debate. We'll allow it to happen. But just let Nick give his position, and then you guys can articulate your response back. But before we do that, did you want to answer the systemic thing? Or
Yeah,
not?
the Hitler
Okay.
thing to me is a diversion, but the systemic racism thing, that's really the critical thing.
Right.
See, I look at it kind of differently. You say that white people came and took the land and we built it off of blacks and everything. The thing is, though, where were blacks working or where were they slaves in America? They were slaves in the South, and they were doing agricultural work. And so as a consequence, they didn't really.
Are we calling it work? Or were they forced? Were they happy to be there?
Forced labor is still labor, right?
That's
it's
forced
forced.
So I mean, but the point is, it's agricultural labor, and America's not built on cotton necessarily. It's built on buildings and railroads and things like that.
That the majority of African American people
We're
actually
picking and doing.
help facilitate and make.
But the point is that blacks picking cotton doesn't mean that they built America. Moreover, all of the wealth that they created in the South was destroyed by the Civil War. Civil War destroyed the entire South. And by the end of it, there was almost nothing left. They were occupied by the North for a generation. So, the notion that like blacks built America, whites built America.
So you're saying that, black people just had to sit down and do the dirty work.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they were brought
White
here.
people.
They were told to do the work. And they did agricultural work. But to say, blacks built America, they were always a fraction of the population. They were never
Well,
more
what
than
I said
10%.
is that the America was built on the backs of slaves, is what I said. And then also the other part of that is shoot.
Well, going back to
We
the
said about the
systemic
land?
racism real quick, because you had said that you want black babies and everything else like that. And then he said he wants white babies. And then you said, well, back in the day, there's a part of systemic racism. That's what makes it racist. But my argument would be, if you look at someone like a Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, et cetera, they all push for, black families to stay together, support black businesses. How's that different from what he was saying? Because they were also around during the civil rights era.
No, I didn't say him wanting to date within his race is racist. I didn't equate that to systemic racism. I was talking about his verbiage. The fact that he called it mixed and the fact that it's blacks and the fact that it's like, yeah, I like y'all, but I'm cool.
Right.
That's where the systemic racism comes from.
That's also
And I'm okay with that. Like I want to have a black family. I don't mind that. Like I'm okay with that. I would never date seriously outside of my race. I wouldn't.
But would it be fair to say that systemic racism can be played on both parts? Because on the black community, they also were saying, hey, back then, same thing with the racist whites. There were also blacks that were racist back towards them. Like, hey, we're going to keep black culture
But black people being
Because it
racist
started that
was
way.
that was a response.
Yeah.
That was the response that was met with racism. That was them standing up for themselves. That was them regaining their lives and their cultures and their identities. That's what they had
but
to
isn't
do.
racism, regardless of whether it's in retaliation or not?
fair point.
I feel like
Touche.
this is an argument of like, what is the definition of racism? It's general disdain or hatred towards one racial group for no reason.
Right.
Or like wanting to date someone. And
So
have
sorry,
kids is
stop
never-
there. So if it's whatever you just said for no reason, right? We as black people had a reason to be racist. We had a reason to be angry. People literally came and took us from our families and beat us and made us stay here and work. That is not the same.
I absolutely believe that black people do have a reason to be angry. However, for moving the black community forward, I feel as if there has to be some level of evolution where the current white people do not necessarily have to pay for the sins of their potential ancestors.
Okay,
So
there
why
has to be
do we-
accountability before you can
Right,
get to
there
Ellis.
has to be an
And
course.
white people don't want to have accountability.
At
Some they
all.
want to go,
Some.
oh, those were. But
We
we're talking
cannot
about
say all, though.
generalizations. We're talking about generalizations.
I don't know.
What does accountability look like, though?
Privilege.
Exactly. What
Well,
does accountability look
tell
like?
me. You
It
tell
looks
me.
like
It looks like
privilege.
reparations.
It looks like privilege.
No way.
No, it looks like reparations. It looks like owning what your
Owning up.
ancestors
Yeah,
did.
absolutely.
It looks like not trying to whitewash history.
Okay.
It looks like
Erase it. Period.
I mean, or erase it, right?
teaching
it looks like things like
history
that.
as it was.
So how would you do reparations? Would you tax all the white people and give it to all the black people?
No, I'm against that shit.
No, if we're talking about reparations, one of the first things I would do would find a way to fund education publicly that does not disadvantage low socioeconomic status households, because unfortunately right now a lot of Black and Hispanic people are living in low socioeconomic status, and when we have education that is funded by the neighborhood, you're putting people at a disadvantage.
We tried
Do
that already
and
with the Black Panthers, and what happened with them?
I-
They became public enemy number one.
Yeah,
FBI is number one
Yeah.
because they were
Yeah.
pushing the Black family. They were pushing
Yeah.
cultural within our culture, and our community,
It got
education,
dismantled.
food programs,
Infiltrated.
medical. Like
It got
when
infiltrated.
Black people become too powerful, we become a threat.
We become a threat.
I understand the sentiment, I really do, but I don't necessarily believe in like monetary. Every Black person just gets $10,000
No,
right
no,
now.
me
Like
either.
that
I'm not
wouldn't
saying
help.
that.
But if we found a way to really infiltrate our youth with the power of education, I feel like that would be a very great first
Step.
a very great first step. But that's not what's happening right now. And I feel like every political season, we all talk about who can use what bathroom. We talk about can a woman have the right to whatever, but we never talk about like public education.
Well, public
K through 12.
education is quite on the forefront right now.
Is it? Okay.
Absolutely.
Maybe, okay.
With what's the Supreme Court just did and what's happening in Ron
But
DeSantis'
that's
state
not
of
K through
Florida.
12 though. I want to get into the K through 12 because that is what is setting the foundation.
But
for
you
these
live in
young
Florida,
students.
baby. You don't know what Ron DeSantis is doing down
That's
here.
at the college level and the graduate level.
No, I mean like the younger generations.
The what is it called? Race theory, critical.
Yeah.
Let me jump in here. Let me throw a little wrench into the conversation. Yeah, everybody's always talking about like education and stuff, and they say, well, the reason that the Blacks and Hispanics aren't performing so well is because the schools aren't funded, the schools aren't good.
There's not one reason, I don't think.
I think there is. And the reason is that when you look at IQ tests, Blacks score one full standard deviation lower than whites on average on
But we're
IQ
not even getting the
tests.
same education.
what is your
we're not even
reasoning
getting
for
the
that?
same.
But IQ doesn't have anything to do with education. IQ is innate.
Do you think that it is like,
Damn.
are you talking about
Okay.
like a nature versus nurture argument here?
Yeah, I'm saying it's genetic.
So you believe that Black people
Oh,
are inherently
okay.
dumber.
I'm saying
Right.
on average,
So
Blacks
the fact
have a
that we
full
are
standard
oppressed and
deviation
being put
lower
in-
IQ.
So you think
And-
it has nothing to do with the way that we
and being
don't have the
redlined
K-12
and being
education,
put
or
in
maybe our
stressful
homes might be
situations. You
a
know,
And
little
here's
that
why.
has
And here's why.
But you don't think that us
That's
being
a
put in
wild argument.
put in
It happens to be true,
what they
though.
call ghetto and do you understand what it is to live a Black life?
No.
You don't, right?
white.
Okay, right. So exactly.
Italian.
So no.
But I like
But
Black
listen, I didn't say that has nothing to do with you liking me or disliking me,
You like
love.
someone that you think is
But when I'm
inherently
when I'm put into when I'm redlined, when I can't go into certain communities, when my community doesn't have what your community has, and I have to go to your community to get what I need. I don't even have what I need in my community. What do you think that is? Like what are the response? These are our responses to the conditions. Do you understand?
Here's
Your
what I
ancestors
want to
created.
yes, I'm
Can I
glad you brought that
interject?
up.
Ladies,
No,
let him
please answer this
respond.
question.
Let him respond to her
Okay.
situation, and then we can go ahead and let you guys chip in. And then we'll probably have to go Rumble sooner than I thought. But this is amazing. Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
So here's the thing. What you're talking about when you say that, Blacks don't have access to resources, that's of course because these neighborhoods are impoverished. They already don't have wealth. They already have these problems. I would throw something else into the mix and say, let's look at something like a food desert. That's a big complaint, is that they're not able to access fresh food in these neighborhoods. Well, Walmart just left Chicago. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago. Walmart just pulled out. Why did Walmart pull out? Is it because of redlining and white racism? Or did Walmart pull out because people kept stealing? They pulled out because people kept stealing.
That argument is a
Who's
non sequitur,
silly?
though.
Why is it non sequitur?
It's a non sequitur because
Y'all still
talking
the
about
most.
food deserts and talking about food deserts and trying to equate that to why you inherently believe that Black and Hispanic people are genetically and inherently less intelligent, it's a non sequitur to talk
Well-
about why Walmart is no longer in Chicago.
Here's
Hold on,
the
I want to touch
correlation.
on that too. Go ahead.
Okay, well,
Okay.
here's the point: is that whenever there's a conversation about because fundamentally the conversation's about the disparity between blacks and whites, which is persistent in wealth, unemployment, income, all these things, and really there's two explanations, and one is circumstance, historical disadvantage, these kinds of things, which you might call nurture, so-called. I mean, for lack of a better word. The other argument is that blacks and whites are different, and they're genetically different, and these behaviors that they exhibit are the result of genetics. And so if black people have an average IQ of 85 in America compared to whites of 100, it doesn't mean that there are no black people with an IQ over 100, obviously. But it does mean that on average, there are fewer of them. And if that's the case, this has real world implications. There's going to be a reason why the black schools perform worse than the white schools. And it's got nothing to do with the school, the funding, the public policy, and it's got everything to do with their innate faculties
Do
in the
you have
beginning.
Hold on,
any
wait,
studies that
wait,
support
wait.
your
Finish
claims?
this point.
Please.
Total
Yeah.
for-
Total.
for you.
Because I need to
Because
hear
I want to go. I want to go in on
studies.
in
Yeah,
next
and
things.
it's-
As a Black woman who is in education, this is something that is very important to me. And I mean, we can talk all day long about the nature versus nurture debate. I do believe a lot of the struggles that the Black community is facing right now has to deal with nature. Nurture over nature. If we had the same resources like the K through 12 education and the strong family unit, I don't see why there is any genetic, like we have coded the human genome. I feel like if there was any genetic implication as to why Blacks and Hispanics are performing less, maybe the scientists who coded the human genome would have come out with that information already, but I don't think that they have.
Well, the brain accounts for 50% of the human
Excuse me, my
genome.
baby.
And when you look at, black people and white people, they have all kinds of different characteristics, different skin color, different gestation period, all kinds of different
Gestation
things.
period by how many days?
I don't know the exact number of days, but
That's-
if you look at it,
Okay.
it tracks. Asians have, I think it's the
Okay.
highest, and then it's whites, Hispanics, and then blacks.
But
But
everything
again, how
comes
is
from
that?
Black.
How is that following the argument
Here's-
that we're
here's the
having
argument.
here? Okay.
So if we agree that there are already differences that we can see, if there's physical differences, then it would follow if the brain is 50% of the human genome, it would be ridiculous to suggest that whites and blacks and Hispanics and Asians all have the same brains.
Intelligence isn't necessarily phenotypic, though.
100% is. What is intelligence? There's a stronger correlation that intelligence is genetic than so many other things. It's a heritable trait.